Team Vietnam is up against Norway, and Magnus Carlsen arrives well on time for the round. Wow, it's a surprise. You can see his teammates and everyone is quite surprised that Magnus Carlsen is on time for this round. But Le Quang Liem is a very strong opponent. He also was the one who beat Ding Liren in their individual encounter here and helped Vietnam draw their match against China. D4 by Le Quang Liem, and Magnus responds back with adjusting all his pieces like he always does. This promises to be an exciting encounter because Le Quang Liem is one of the finest players in the world with a rating of 2741, and with the white pieces he's extremely strong. Magnus now takes a bit of his time, opens his bottle, drinks some water. He's not playing his first move here yet, but he's thinking whether he should choose d5 as his first move or knight f6. He goes knight to f6. And white plays his pawn to c4. What is Magnus's next option now? He can go e6, he can go g6. He decides to play the solid line with e6. Vietnam has performed very well in this tournament, and a win against Norway would be something that they would really love to take back home. But it really depends on the board one. If Le Quang Liem manages to hold Magnus, that would be surely giving Vietnam a huge edge. We have Queen's Gambit declined now. Knight comes out to c3. Generally, there are two ways to play here. One is g3 for the Catalan and knight c3. Le Quang Liem chooses the latter, and Magnus now goes c6. Wow, semi-Slav on the board. This is interesting now because it's a sharp line and bishop g5 system chosen. There are many interesting ways to play. You can take the pawn, you can play h6, but Magnus decides to play the more solid knight bd7. e3, this is known as the Cambridge Springs variation. You can go queen a5 now to play the Cambridge Springs, but Magnus goes h6. He's trying to go for another setup here. h6, the bishop goes back to h4, and now bishop to e7 seems like the most natural move here to play. Well, you can see that black is playing a very solid strategy. His bishop on c8 is not that great. It feels like Magnus has gone back into the 1920s or 1930s era, where he does not care about the opening evaluation, is ready to give white a small edge and then equalize very slowly. This is not how modern day chess players are playing the openings. They want to play it more directly. But Magnus is this perfect synthesis of modern era plus having classical chess knowledge. He castles here. And Le Quang Liem now can play bishop d3. But he plays a3. And notice how he's not developing his bishop on f1. Because whenever Magnus takes, he wants to take back with one full tempo saved. And Magnus also not committing. He goes a6. So that after take, he can go b5, bishop b7 and c5. So it's a battle for one tempo, and now cd taken here by Le Quang Liem. And I think logical is to take with the e pawn. He takes back. E takes d5 is on the board. Now just bishop d3, short castle seems like the way in which white should continue. He goes first queen c2 here. And Magnus might most likely put his rook on e8. That's a natural move to play, but he goes knight e8. Wow, very instructive move actually, because the knight is very often beautifully placed on d6. Bishop goes back to g3, and I won't be surprised if Magnus pursues the bishop with bishop d6. Yes, he plays it. Bishop d6 on the board. And here his opponent can actually kind of repeat with bishop h4, bishop e7 and bishop g3. But I think Le Quang Liem decides to just continue developing, places bishop to d3. Magnus chops off the bishop on g3, and now h takes g3 seems the most logical. Yes, the rook is open now on the h file, but it's not so easy to attack, and I'm assuming that white will short castle in this position. Knight goes to f6. You can see that Magnus wants to go knight d6 and put one of his pieces on the e4 square. Knight jumps into the central square on e5. And now knight to d6 played. And right now the e4 square is well controlled, but look at this move, f3. Very ambitious move by Le Quang Liem. He could have castled here, but instead he goes f3. He wants to put his king on f2. Rook e8 played, and now he wants to put his king on f2, sort of shore up the e3 pawn and keep his rook on h1. Knight e2 played. Okay, this is slightly risky strategy, I feel. Okay, the first order of the day is to remove this knight, and that's why knight d7 makes a lot of sense. Now if you were to play f4, then after f6, anyway you will have to trade. So I think, oh, he goes rook h5. Very interesting. But I guess Magnus will play f6 and force the knight to anyway trade here. I think Liem takes now on d7. There is bishop takes d7 on the board, and e3 pawn is a bit weak. So king f2 can be possible here. He plays it. But now, is there a tactic in the air with rook takes e3, king takes e3, queen e8 check and taking on h5? For now Magnus avoids it. He plays f5, blocking the bishop, blocking the rook here, and rook e1 played. And maybe queen f6 is a possible move, but we can also go for this boom tactic. Rook takes e3, very nice tactic here. King takes e3 is met with queen e8 check and picking up the rook. So it's just I'm sure that Le Quang Liem has noticed this tactic. By the way, you can see the clock timings. Both have 38 minutes on the clock. 39 minutes for Magnus, 38 for Le Quang Liem. Queen h5. And I think in this resulting position, Le Quang Liem felt that he has good compensation, because he can now play queen c5, try to attack the softened dark squares in the black camp. Okay, queen g6 makes the most sense here, defending the knight. He plays his queen back, and knight f4 seems to be a move to hit the queen. Oh, he goes queen b6. He wants to enter here. But can we stop it with rook c8? It is possible actually to play rook c8 and stop that move from coming in. But Magnus rather plays queen f6, and he's like, I'm looking at your d4 square, your knight on e2 can no longer move here. Queen comes into c7, attacking the bishop now. Wow, white is actually infiltrating with the queen. Bishop e8 played by Magnus. It's a complex position here, very difficult for humans to assess it correctly. Knight f4 played by Liem, giving up another pawn, that too with a check here. King f1, because now the rook entering, the knight hanging, all of these things. Magnus says, I'm not interested in the pawn. He goes rook c8. And this is a high class move, because Liem now sacrifices his queen. He has sacrificed his queen, and Magnus, I don't know if he's surprised here or if he had already seen this coming. Most likely he had seen this coming, because he has assessed this position deeply, I believe. You can see that Liem is going to get not just a rook and a piece, but in fact 2 pieces after take and take. So rook takes e8 taken, check. Now king has to go to f7. If you go to h7, then later on this diagonal will make you worry a bit. So king f7, good move. And now rook takes c8, very likely move. The problem here that white faces is that materially he is doing very well, but the pieces do not have a very fixed square. So now a check to the king, and later if g5 is played, the bishop is hanging. So all these factors are creating big problems. King f1, and now g5 is the move. So it does play g5. Good move there by Magnus. If the knight moves, the d3 bishop falls. So he has to do something tactically. Rook f8. What a move this is. If king f8, there is a check. So he goes king e7. Knight hanging. Rook hanging. Bishop would hang if the knight moves. What a position. Knight g6 check played. Now king comes to d6. Somehow, magically, white has managed to save all his pieces. In fact, he's even taken this pawn. But Magnus has assessed this position unbelievably well, that after queen takes b2, his king is now running here, so there is no way to weave a mating net, and these 4 pawns are extremely strong. This is just another level of play, another level of assessment that Magnus does, and that's the reason why he is world number 1 for over 10 years in chess now. Maybe not 10, it may be 14 years he is number 1. Queen takes a3. This is the quality of chess he can play. He can basically understand that this position, the queen is just way superior than these 3 minor pieces. King f2, and it's time for the a pawn to rush down the board. a5 played, and slowly and steadily Magnus is going to end up with an extra queen on the board. Le Quang Liem has to find a way to hassle Magnus in some way or the other. Knight e5, but I don't see why this should stop the pawn. Just push it. He pushes it. a4. Where's the next check coming from? Because the king has a very safe square on c5 to go to. Magnus gets up, looks at the other games, and his opponent plays rook f7. This check is not really a threat because of king c5. The pawn on b7 is attacked. So he goes queen b2 check, defending here. It's a nice move. Thinking g1, you want to tuck your king in safely there. So he goes king f1 actually. And now can we keep moving ahead? Well, you have to be careful. If you play a3 now, then check, king here, and knight d3 check, and you drop the queen. So Magnus plays queen b5. He doesn't fall for these little tricks. He's very sharp. Queen b5. The bishop comes back to d3 to attack the queen. And now queen to b3 played. This time the queen is well placed. Safe. Check. Then I can go king c5. Bishop comes back to f5. I don't see this helping in any way. Let's push the pawn forward. a3. Step by step, Magnus Carlsen has outwitted his amazing opponent here. Knight d3 comes in. Maybe a mating idea has been put up. Rook d7 is a mate. If you're careless and play a2, that's a mate. But Magnus just chops off the knight. What a move there. Bishop takes d3 and now plays a2. There's no way to stop the pawn. You're making another queen and it's all over here. Rook takes b7 played and a1 queen. Now Magnus is material up. 2 pawns in the center. He has a queen for a rook and a bishop. And this is brilliant play here by Magnus. Truly phenomenal. And after king e2 here by Le Quang Liem. He's just trying to make couple of moves. I'm sure he's going to resign now, because there is queen g1, nice move. If king f3, trying to hang on to the pawn, there's g4, and if you take here, I give you a check and I win your bishop. So here Magnus goes and checks other boards. He resigns here. Magnus Carlsen scores a very important victory for his team, and now helps Norway to get the lead in the match. However, later on, one of his boards lost and the match ended in a 2-2 draw, but it doesn't take away anything from Magnus's brilliant play here. Le Quang Liem tried to play as creatively and imaginatively as possible, but perhaps his assessment of the position fell a bit short when compared to Magnus's assessment. And this is why I feel Magnus is the most complete player, because he not only calculates well, but after every calculation he also assesses the position well as to what's happening, whether this is good for me, not good for me, and so on. So, and from here he has to go to the awards, FIDE 100 awards, where he got the award for the best player there, and that video is all up there on the social media. You can check it out. Magnus, speaking to everyone, says, thank you for this honor, but I still feel that the achievements of Garry Kasparov are higher than mine, which just shows what a humble chess player he really is in terms of when he talks about other greats of the game.